2 years. For 2 years, she told her doctors that something was happening to her brain. Words that just didn't come as fast. A fog that sleep just didn't fix. A version of herself she just couldn't quite get back to. 2 doctors, 2 years, and what she was told consistently was, it's just stress, this is just perimenopause, this is just normal aging. When she came to me, I ran the markers that most physicians never order, and what we found changed the trajectory of her next decade. Just aging is not a diagnosis, and the cognitive decline, which is real, measurable, reversible in many cases, begins years before it even has a name. I'm Dr. Myra Reed, and I practice early detection longevity medicine. My practice runs through 4 pillars: hormones, gut health, lifestyle factors, and environmental exposures. I'd like to tell you about a patient, and for her name's privacy, we'll call her Carol. Carol was 61 years old when she started coming to see me. She had been a sharp, high-functioning professional her entire career. And in the 2 years before she found me, she had been slowly watching that version of herself kind of disappear. She was losing words about mid-sentence, not occasionally, but consistently. And she would walk into a room and had no idea why she was there. She would read the same paragraph 3 times and retain nothing. And she was waking up at 3 a.m. unable to fall back asleep. She told her primary care doctor, and she was told it was just stress. She went to a specialist, and she was told it was perimenopause. Both times she was handed a prescription and sent home. No cognitive testing done, no metabolic workup, no investigation into what was actually driving the decline. Carol didn't need someone to dismiss her symptoms. Carol needed someone to ask why. I'll come back to Carol in a minute, but first I need to explain what the research actually tells us about why this is happening and how far upstream it really begins. I want to challenge a belief that most people carry into my office. The belief that cognitive decline is inevitable, that it just happens, that it runs in the family and there's nothing that can be done, or that it's just aging. The published research tells a different story. Dr. Bredesen, whose protocol I'm certified in, has identified more than 36 of these distinct metabolic factors that contribute to cognitive decline, but 36 addressable, measurable inputs that drive the process. That means cognitive decline is not a single disease, it's a cascade. The most common upstream drivers that I see in clinical practice are chronic systemic inflammation markers like the high sensitivity CRP, homocysteine, plus so many more. Inflammation damages that blood-brain barrier, that protective filter that keeps the toxins out of our brain. Another measure that I like is insulin resistance, because that is huge against the brain. Some researchers call this Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes. I talked a lot about this in my week 3 that we just did last week, but these are some of the most important markers that we have. Another marker is hormones. Because our hormones decline, we get that atrophy, estrogen, testosterone, and all of those protective tissue hormones. So when that structure and that support and the integrity of the brain is going to be affected by this and cause decline. Other important things that need to be measured are nutrient deficiencies, such as the homocysteine level, your B12, your folate, your vitamin D, because we know that things that happen to us chronically, if we get chronic disease, is either not having enough of what we're supposed to have or having too much of what that's affecting our brain. So we really need to look at both of those and measure those to see, are you optimal? Another important factor for brain health and cognitive issues is your sleep architecture. Your brain clears out all this metabolic waste during that slow, deep phase of sleep at night through a system called the glymphatic pathway. When sleep is fragmented, that clearance doesn't happen, and the proteins that associated with cognitive decline accumulate. So all of these are not just peptide deficiencies. This is foundational work that we really need to look at. It's so important to address all these foundational things with a type of a functional medicine approach or just a good longevity approach of medicine. So it's just not replacing peptides. And none of these are peptide deficiency specifically. The peptides come after, they layer on top, because once all these upstream environmental things are addressed, then that's the time to start layering in the peptides. And that is the difference between symptom management and longevity medicine. So I promised you about Carol's story, and I'm going to get there, but in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what cognitive peptides do and why the sequence matters. So stay with me. Once we've addressed, again, all these upstream drivers, there is a category of peptides that directly support the brain's capacity to repair, protect, and that neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to form the new connections, adapt, and recover. It doesn't stop at age 30 or 50 or 70, but it does require the right environment to do its job. The first is Semax. Semax is a synthetic analog of a natural brain peptide derived from ACTH. That's a hormone that your pituitary produces and signals to the body and the brain. The primary mechanism is increasing the BDNF. BDNF stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as the fertilizer for the neurons. It enhances focus and the processing speed, and it's been studied for neuroprotection after brain injury. In clinical use, Semax is typically used intranasally, meaning it's delivered through the nose mucosa, which goes directly to the brain through the cribriform plate. The second one I like to talk about is Selank. Selank is an anxiolytic peptide, meaning it reduces anxiety without sedation. It modulates the GABA hormone. That's the brain's calming neurotransmitter, and the serotonin pathways. Clinical research has shown improvements in memory, attention, mental clarity, alongside reducing that anxiety. The third is Dihexa. Dihexa is one of the most powerful, potent neuroplasticity supporting compounds. It works by increasing what we call the HGF/c-MET signaling pathway, which drives synaptogenesis, the formation of new connections between neurons. This early research suggests it may be millions of times more potent than even BDNF at promoting synaptic growth. One more peptide worth naming here, and if you watched week 2, you've already met it. The BPC 157, which I covered in the context of healing and gut repair, it also plays a role in the gut-brain axis. Your gut produces approximately 90% of your body's serotonin. Your vagus nerve carries a signal directly between your gut and your brain. So when the gut is inflamed or the mucosal lining is compromised of your gut, that communication becomes disrupted. BPC 157's healing effects on the gut lining has these downstream implications for neurotransmitter production and the inflammatory load reaching your brain. So cognitive health is not just a brain problem, it's a systems problem, and the treatment has to match that. Let's get back to Carol. When I ran her comprehensive panel, here's what we found. Her homocysteine was significantly elevated. This is one of the strongest modifiable risk factors for cognitive decline. Her high sensitivity CRP was elevated. Her vitamin D was deficient, which we know is so important for energy and immune. Her B12 was at a very bottom of the reference range, and her fasting insulin was elevated, meaning early insulin resistance. A home sleep study showed severely fragmented sleep. She was never reaching that slow, deep wave sleep that cleans out the brain. Carol did not have stress. Carol did not have perimenopause-related brain fog. Carol had 6 measurable, treatable, upstream drivers of cognitive decline, none of which had ever been looked at before. We built her protocol. We corrected the homocysteine with targeted B vitamins. We targeted and addressed her vitamin D deficiency, her diet, her sleep architect. Then is when we added the CJC 1295 and ipamorelin to support her growth hormone pulse and the slow wave sleep. We addressed her insulin resistance through diet and lifestyle factors. And once that foundation was in place, we added the Semax. At 60 days, Carol told me that the fog began to lift. At 90 days, she was finishing her sentences again. And at 6 months, she came back in and said, I feel like I got my brain back. This is the result of testing before treating, or even asking why, not just what. And it's about understanding that the brain is the most complex organ in the body, and it deserves a protocol that matches that complexity. I want to pause here because Carol's story is one that I hear almost every week in my practice. Someone who knew something was wrong, who said, and she even was saying it out loud to her physicians, she was just sent home with the word normal with no real answers. So I want to ask you something. Have you ever been dismissed for a symptom that you knew was real? Maybe it's brain fog. It could be difficulty finding that word, energy collapse, poor sleep, just overall inflammation feeling. If so, did you just keep pushing for answers, or did you just start believing that what they told you was normal? Drop your answer in the comments because I read every one of them. And if you're still looking for answers, let's talk in the comments. I'd love to discuss this more online. I also want you to check out all my resources that we link down below in the description, because there's so much information that I'd love to share with you. It's all free. So I want to thank you for being here, because everything I do, every protocol, every video, every conversation runs through the same belief. I want to help you live smarter, stronger, longer, because I don't want your first symptom being your last. We'll see you next week.